There's new insight into President Trump changing course on his plans for ICE raids originally set for today. The president announcing a 2-week delay on Twitter yesterday, which he says gives Congress time to work on new immigration policies. This shift comes just days after he says he stopped a plan to strike Iran. The president overnight, though, taking issue with the idea that he reversed course, saying, "I never called the strike against Iran back," as people are incorrectly reporting. "I just stopped it from going forward at this time." Okay, so let's bring in Bishop Garrison, co-founder of the Joseph Rainey Center for Public Policy, and Republican strategist Brian Darling, founder and president of Liberty Government Affairs. Welcome, guys. Bishop, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Is it a coincidence that these two shifts happen in a matter of days, or is there a significant theme here we should be taking note of?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I absolutely am concerned that there is a theme. There is a president that seems as though he takes in, to some degree, some level of advice from his advisors, but then is unable to make final decisions and changes his mind in the 11th hour on multiple occasions. This is not the way you can actually lead a country or maintain a government.
Brian, how are Republicans reacting to both of these actions being put on hold? Does it contrast with the image of strength that he wants to be projecting here?
Well, I think it's important that the final outcome of these decisions is a good one. And if you look at the Iran decision, I think all Americans agree that it was a good decision. You're hearing a lot of praise from Democrats. They don't like the way we got here, but they do like the fact that the president was restrained and did not move forward with that attack. And I think that's in stark contrast to many presidents of the past. And if you look at his own administration, he's got guys like John Bolton who are pushing hard for attacking Iran. I think Americans are happy not to be engaged in another war today.
If I could just add, though, Brian, when it comes to foreign policy and national security, it does actually matter the path in which you get to your end state and your goals. No one wants war with Iran, or the vast majority of people, of logical people, don't want war with Iran. But we want to ensure that we have some stability and some pragmatic aspects of our foreign policy, and to make threats and then to not follow through with the types of things that you're doing, draconian or not, is terrible. It's a bad look, and it doesn't send the right signal or message to any of our allies. So it would have been better if he not withdrawn from the Iran deal to begin with and actually use some diplomatic aspects versus this bully mentality that he has.
Brian, you want to respond to that?
I like how the president's keeping his promises. You look back to the Obama administration. The Obama administration attacked Libya, flip-flopped in Syria, was engaged in at least 7 offensive activities. And the good thing about President Trump is he's kept his promises not to engage in new wars. And that is not something that we saw during the Obama years.
Guys, I want to ask you, I'll start with Bishop here. NBC News has it that 2 DHS officials are saying that the ICE raids were called off in large part because details of the plan had leaked to journalists. And a second issue was that ICE did not have plans in place for detaining 2,000 immigrant families. So they didn't really have the capacity. So why do you think President Trump is putting a different spin on this?
Because he realizes and understands that his administration has made some grave mistakes. We have a humanitarian crisis on our hands with families being ripped apart, with children in subhuman, substandard conditions that they're being forced to live in. And now the president was planning on taking on more people when he can't hold on, when he can't provide the proper detention facilities for the individuals that he currently has. And we're just going to make this problem that we already have incredibly worse at a point in which you don't need to do this. None of these are the types of policies that need to be implemented. He's choosing to do this to people, and it's a travesty.
Brian, can I get your reaction on that?
Well, we did see that Nancy Pelosi reached out to the president. They had conversations. Hopefully, there'll be some conversations moving forward, because as we've seen, both parties are dug in on the issue, and hopefully there's some common ground that can actually come to an agreement on something before the situation gets worse.
Well, we certainly found some common ground today. Bishop and Brian, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.